The last noise had not died away when the chief of the sea wanderers came in by the door, and he had with him black bottles from which we drank and made merry. You see, I was only a stripling, and had lived all my days on the edge of the world. So my blood became as fire, and my heart as lightning, as the froth that flies from the surf to the cliff. Unga sat silent among the skins of the corner, her eyes wide, for she seemed to fear, and he, with the mane of a sea lion, looked upon her straight and long. Then his men came in with bundles of goods, and he piled before me wealth such as was not in all Akatan. There were guns, both large and small, and powder and shot and shell, and bright axes and knives of steel, and cunning tools, and strange things, the like of which I had never seen. When he showed me by sign that it was all mine, I thought him a great man to be so free. But he showed me also that Unga was to go away with him in his ship. Do you understand? That Unga was to go away with him in his ship? The blood of my fathers flamed hot on the sudden, and I made to drive him through with my spear. But the spirit of the bottles had stolen the life from my arm, and he took me by the neck. And I knocked my head against the wall of the house, and I was made weak like a newborn child, and my legs would no more stand under me. Unga screamed, and she laid hold of the things of the house with her hands, till they fell all about us as he dragged her to the door. Then he took her in his great arms, and when she tore at his yellow hair, laughed with a sound like that of a big bull, seal in rut. I crawled to the beach and called upon my people, but they were afraid. Only Yashnush was a man, and they struck him on the head with an oar till he lay with his face in the sand and did not move. And they raised the sails to the sound of their songs, and the ship went away on the wind. The people said it was good, for there would be no more war of the bloods in Akatan. But I said never a word, waiting till the time of the full moon, when I put fish and oil in my kayak and went away to the east. I saw many islands and many people, and I, who had lived on the edge, saw the world was very large. I talked by signs, but they had not seen a schooner nor a man with the mane of a sea lion, and they pointed always to the east. And I slept in queer places, and ate odd things, and met strange faces. Many laughed, for they thought me light of head. But sometimes old men turned my face to the light, and blessed me, and the eyes of the young women grew soft as they asked me of the strange ship, and Unga, and the men of the sea. And in this manner, through rough seas and great storms, I came to Unalaska. There were 2 schooners there, but neither was the one I sought. So I passed on to the east, with the world growing ever larger, and in the island of Unamak there was no word of the ship, nor an Kadayak, nor an Antonak. And so I came one day to a rocky land, where men dug great holes in the mountain. And there was a schooner, but not my schooner, and men loaded upon it the rocks which they dug. This I thought childish, for all the world was made of rocks, but they gave me food and set me to work. When the schooner was deep in the water, the captain gave me money and told me to go, but I asked which way he went, and he pointed south. I made signs that I would go with him, and he laughed at first, but then, being short of men, took me to help work the ship. So I came to talk after their manner, and to heave on ropes, and to reef the stiff sails in sudden squalls, and to take my turn at the wheel. But it was not strange, for the blood of my fathers was the blood of the men of the sea. I had thought it an easy task to find him, I thought, once I had got among his own people, and when we raised the land one day and passed between a gateway of the sea to a port, I looked for perhaps as many schooners as there were fingers to my hand, but the ships lay against the wharves for miles, packed like so many little fish, and I went among them to ask for a man with the mane of a sea lion. They laughed, and answered me in the tongues of many people, and I found that they hailed from the uttermost parts of the earth. And I went into the city to look upon the face of every man, but they were like cod when they run thick on the banks, and I could not count them. and the noise smote upon me till I could not hear, and my head was dizzy with much movement. So I went on and on through the lands which sang in the warm sunshine, where the harvest lay rich on the plains, and where great cities were fat with men that lived like women, with false words in their mouths, and their hearts black with the lust of gold. And all the while my people of Attican hunted and fished, and were happy in the thought that the world was small. But the look in the eyes of Unga coming home from the fishing was with me always, and I knew I would find her when the time was met. She walked down quiet lanes in the dusk of the evening, or led me chases across the thick fields wet with the morning dew, and there was a promise in her eyes, such as only the woman Unga could give. So I wandered through 1,000 cities. Some were gentle and gave me food, and others laughed, and still others cursed. But I kept my tongue between my teeth, and went strange ways, and saw strange sights. Sometimes I, who was a chief, and the son of a chief, toiled for men rough of speech and hard as iron, who wrung gold from the sweat and sorrow of their fellow men. Yet no word did I get out of my quest, till I came back to the sea like a homing seal to the rookeries. But this was at another port, in another country, which lay to the north. And there I heard dim tales of the yellow-haired sea-wanderer, and I learned that he was a hunter of seals, and that even then he was abroad on the ocean. So I shipped on a seal schooner with the lazy Siwashes, and followed his trackless trail to the north, where the hunt was then warm. And we were away weary months, and spoke of many of the fleet, and heard much of the wild doings of him I sought, but never once did we raise him above the sea. We went north, even to the Profilos, and killed the seals in herds on the beaches, and brought their warm bodies aboard till our scuppers ran grease and blood, and no man could stand upon the deck. Then we were chased by a ship of slow steam, which fired upon us with great guns. But we put sail till the sea was over our decks, and washed them clean, and lost ourselves in the fog. It is said at this time, while we fled with fear at our hearts, that the yellow-haired sea-wanderer put into the Proflifs, right to the factory, and while the part of his men held the servants of the company, the rest loaded 10,000 green skins from the salt houses. I say it is said, but I believe, for in the voyages I made on the coast, with never a meeting, the northern seas rang with his wildness and daring, till the 3 nations which have lands there sought him with their ships. I heard of Unga, for the captain sang loud in her praise, and she was always with him. She had learned the ways of his people, they said, and was happy. But I knew better, knew that her heart harked back to her own people by the yellow beach of Akatan. So after a long while, I went back to the port, which is by a gateway of the sea, and there I learned that he had gone across the girth of the great ocean to hunt for the seal to the east of the warm land which runs south from the Russian seas. And I, who was become a sailor-man, shipped with men of his own race, and went after him in the hunt of the seal. And there were few ships off that new land, but we hung on the flank of the seal pack and harried it north through all the spring of the year. And when the cows were heavy with pup and crossed the Russian line, our men grumbled and were afraid, for there was much fog, and every day men were lost in the boats. They would not work, so the captain turned the ship back towards the way it came. But I knew the yellow-haired sea-wanderer was unafraid, and would hang by the pack even to the Russian Isles, where few men go. So I took a boat in the black of night when the lookout dozed on the forecastle, and went alone to the warm, long land. And I journeyed south to meet the men of Yedo Bay, who were wild and unafraid. And the Yoshiwara girls were small and bright like steel, and good to look upon. But I could not stop, for I knew that Unga rolled on the tossing floor by the rookeries of the north. The men by Yedo Bay had met from the ends of the earth, and had neither gods nor homes, sailing under the flag of the Japanese. And with them I went to the rich beaches of Copper Island, where salt piles became high with skins. And in that silent sea we saw no man till we were ready to come away. Then one day the fog lifted on the edge of a heavy wind, and there jammed down upon us a schooner, with close in her wake the cloudy funnels of a Russian man-o'-war. We fled away on the beam of the wind, with the schooner jamming still closer and plunging ahead 2 feet to our 2, 3 feet to our 2, and upon her poop was the man with the mane of the sea lion, pressing the rails under the canvas and laughing in his strength of life. And Unga was there. I knew her on the moment, but she sent her below when the cannons began to talk across the sea. As I say, with 3 feet to our 2, till we saw the rudder lift green at every jump, and I swinging on to the wheel and cursing, with my back to the Russian shot, for we knew what he had in mind to run before us, that he might get away while we were caught. And they knocked our masts out of us, till we dragged into the wind like a wounded gull. But he went on over the edge of the skyline, he and Unga. What could we? The fresh hides spoke for themselves, so they took us to a Russian port, and after that to a lone country, where they set us to work in the mines to dig salt. And some died, and some did not die. Nath swept the blanket from his shoulders, disclosing the gnarled and twisted flesh, marked with unmistakable striations of the knout. Prince hastily covered him, for it was not nice to look upon. We were there a weary time, and sometimes men got away to the south, but they always came back. So, when we who hailed from Yedo Bay rose in the night and took the guns from the guards, we went to the north, and the land was very large, with plains, soggy with water, and great forests. And the cold came, with much snow on the ground, and no man knew the way. Weary months we journeyed through the endless forest. I do not remember now, for there was little food, and often we lay down to die. But at last we came to the cold sea, and but 3 were left to look upon it. One had shipped from Yedo as captain, and he knew in his head the lay of the great lands, and of the places where men may cross from one to another on the ice. And he led us, I do not know, it was so long, till there were but 2. When we came to the place where we found 5 of the strange people which live in that country, and they had dogs and skins, and we were very poor. We fought in the snow till they died, and the captain died, and the dogs and skins were mine. Then I crossed on the ice, which was broken, and once I drifted till a gale from the west put me upon the shore. And after that, Golovin Bay, Pastolik, and the priest, then south to the warm sunlands, where first I wandered. But the sea was no longer fruitful, and those who went upon it after the seal went to little profit and great risk. The fleets scattered, and the captain and the men had no words of those I sought. So I turned away from the ocean, which never rests, and went among the lands where the trees, the houses, and the mountains sit always in one place and do not move. I journeyed far, and came to learn many things, even to the way of reading and writing from books. It was well I should do this, for it came upon me that Unga must know these things, and that some day, when time was met, you understand, when the time was met. So I drifted, like those little fishes which raise sail to the wind, but cannot steer. But my eyes and my ears were open always, and I went among men who travelled much, for I knew that they had but to see those I sought to remember. At last there came a man, fresh from the mountains, with pieces of rock in which the free gold stood to the size of peas. And he had heard, he had met, he knew them. They were rich, he said, and lived in the place where they drew the gold from the ground. It was a wild country and very far away, but in time I came to the camp hidden between the mountains, where men worked night and day out of sight of the sun. Yet the time had not come. I listened to the talk of the people. He had gone away. They had gone away to England, it was said, in the matter of bringing men to much money together to form companies. I saw the house they had lived in, more like a palace, such as one sees in the old countries. In the night time I crept in through a window, that I might see in what manner he treated her. I went from room to room, and in such way thought kings and queens must live. It was all so very good, and they said they all said he treated her like a queen, and many marveled as to what breed of woman she was, for there was other blood in her veins, and she was different from the women of Akatan, and no one knew her for what she was. She was a queen, but I was a chief and the son of a chief, and I had paid for her an untold price of skin and boat and bead. But why so many words? I was a sailorman, and knew the way of the ships on the sea. I followed to England, and then to other countries. Sometimes I heard of them by word of mouth. Sometimes I read of them in the papers. Yet never once could I come by them, for they had much money and travelled fast, while I was a poor man. Then came trouble upon them, and their wealth slipped away one day like a curl of smoke. The papers were full of it at the time, but after that nothing was said, and I knew that they had gone back where more gold could be got from the ground. They had dropped out of the world, being now poor, and so I wandered from camp to camp, even north to the Kootenai country, where I picked up the cold scent. They had come and gone. Some said this way and some that, and still others that they had gone to the country of the Yukon. And I went this way, and I went that, ever journeying from place to place, till it seemed I must grow weary of the world, which was so large. But in the Kootenai I travelled a bad trail and a long trail with a breed of the Northwest, who saw fit to die when the famine pinched. He had been to the Yukon by an unknown way over the mountains, and when he knew his time was near, gave me the map and the secret of a place where he swore by his gods there was much gold. After that all the world began to flock into the north. I was a poor man. I sold myself to be a driver of dogs. The rest you know. I met him and her in Dawson.